Welcome to the long way through Scripture. I'm Catherine Schaefer. This is a slow walk through the Bible. It's not rushed, there's no pressure, just one section at a time, letting it unfold as it does. Each week, we're not trying to master Scripture. We're simply learning how to stay with it a little longer than we normally would, allowing the story to speak before we rush ahead. If you're following along and want something to help you process what you're reading, there is a companion workbook for this podcast. It's simple and steady, just something to help you reflect and stay grounded in the text as you go. You can find it on the website linked below. It's there if you want it, not something you have to keep up with. And I'm really glad you're here. So let's begin. Week 30, Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon. This week brings together two books that feel very different from one another. Yet they ask two questions nearly every person wrestles with at some point in life. What gives life meaning? And what does love look like when it is lived according to God's design? At first glance, Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon seem like unlikely companions. One spends much of its time reflecting on the temporary nature of life, while the other celebrates love, commitment, and the beauty of relationship. Yet both books invite us to slow down and consider the gifts God has given us rather than rushing through life without noticing them. We begin with Ecclesiastes. Many people are surprised by this book because it doesn't sound the way they expect Scripture to sound. It raises difficult questions. It observes life's frustrations. It acknowledges that many things we spend our lives chasing never fully satisfy. Traditionally associated with Solomon, Ecclesiastes reflects on a lifetime of experience. The writer has pursued wisdom, wealth, accomplishment, pleasure, knowledge, and success. He has explored nearly everything people often believe will finally bring lasting fulfillment. Again and again, he arrives at the same conclusion. Apart from God, these things cannot carry the weight we place upon them. One of the phrases you'll encounter repeatedly is vanity of vanities. In older English, the word vanity points beyond pride. It speaks of something temporary, fleeting, like a breath or morning mist that quickly disappears. The writer is reminding us that many of the things we devote ourselves to are far more fragile than we imagine. That doesn't mean life has no meaning. It means life was never meant to find its meaning apart from God. As the book continues, the writer reflects on realities every generation experiences. Time passes, seasons change, people are born and people die, success comes and goes, wealth can disappear, human accomplishments eventually fade as new generations take their place. Those observations can sound discouraging if we stop there. But Ecclesiastes isn't inviting us into despair. It is inviting us into perspective. When we believe lasting satisfaction can be found in careers, possessions, recognition, or personal achievement alone, we eventually discover those things cannot fully satisfy the deepest longing of the human heart. That truth feels remarkably relevant today. Our culture constantly encourages us to pursue more success, influence, possessions, experiences. Yet, Ecclesiastes gently asks whether any of those things are capable of giving us the lasting peace we're actually searching for. Again and again, the writer returns to simple gifts: sharing a meal, finding joy in honest work, receiving each other each day as a gift from God, enjoying the relationships placed before us. Rather than constantly chasing what lies beyond our reach, Ecclesiastes encourages us to recognize God's goodness in the ordinary moments that often pass unnoticed. One of the most familiar passages appears in chapter 3. To everything there is a season. Those words have become deeply woven into our culture, yet within the book they serve as a reminder that life unfolds in rhythms we cannot completely control. There are seasons of building and seasons of letting go, seasons of laughter and seasons of tears, times of waiting, healing, planting, and harvesting. The writer isn't encouraging passivity. He is reminding us that life is lived one season at a time, and God remains present through each one. Near the end of the book, after exploring countless questions, Ecclesiastes arrives at a remarkable, simple conclusion: fear God and keep his commandments. After searching everywhere else, the writer discovers that the life centered on God is the life that endures. Then we turn the page and the tone changes almost completely. Song of Solomon is unlike any other book we've encountered so far. Instead of reflections about the brevity of life, we find poetry celebrating love between a bride and her bridegroom, their admiration for one another, their commitment, longing, and the beauty of covenant relationship fill these pages with language that is both joyful and deeply personal. For many readers, this book can feel unexpected. Why would a book celebrating romantic love be included in Scripture? Perhaps because God is the one who created love in the first place. Throughout the Bible, marriage is presented as a gift rather than an accident of human history. Song of Solomon celebrates that gift with beauty, dignity, and delight. Rather than treating love as something casual or disposable, it presents it as something precious that should be treasured and protected. One of the repeated themes throughout the book is patience. Several times, the reader is encouraged not to awaken love before its proper time. That reminder points toward God's wisdom in relationships. Love flourishes best when it grows within the boundaries God designed for it rather than being forced or rushed. As Christians, we also recognize that many throughout church history have seen another layer within Song of Solomon. While the book clearly celebrates human marriage, it has also been understood as reflecting the love between Christ and his people. The New Testament frequently describes the church as the bride of Christ, making the language of faithful covenant love especially meaningful. Whether we read the book primarily as a celebration of marriage or also recognize those broader spiritual themes, one truth remains clear: love is not merely an emotion. It is something to be cherished, protected, nurtured, and lived faithfully. When we place Ecclesiastes beside Song of Solomon, an interesting picture begins to emerge. Ecclesiastes reminds us that possessions, achievements, and worldly success cannot ultimately satisfy the human heart. Song of Solomon reminds us that some of God's greatest gifts are found in relationships built upon love, commitment, and faithfulness. Both books gently redirect our attention. One lifts our eyes away from chasing temporary things. The other encourages us to treasure the gifts God has already placed before us. Together, they point us to a life that is rooted not in constant striving, but in gratitude for the God who gives meaning to every season. So, as you read these books this week, don't worry if they feel different from what we've been reading recently. Allow Ecclesiastes to ask its difficult questions without rushing to easy answers. Allow Song of Solomon to remind you that love too is part of God's good design. The reflection to carry with you this week is this: a meaningful life is not found by chasing everything the world promises. It is found by walking with God and receiving His gifts with gratitude. Ecclesiastes reminds us that life apart from God leaves us searching. Song of Solomon reminds us that God's gifts, including faithful love and relationships, are meant to be received with joy. Together, they point us toward a life centered not on endless striving, but on the God who gives every good gift. And that is where this part of the journey leaves us. Learning that true fulfillment is found not in having more, but in knowing the one who gives life its deepest meaning. As you move into the reading this week, remember, there's no rush. Read slowly, read a little at a time, or simply sit with the passages if that's what the week allows. Scripture doesn't ask us to perform, it invites us to remain. Everything connected to this journey lives in the show notes. If you're looking for more than podcast episodes, I also send a weekly email called Walking It Out with Catherine. You can subscribe for free through my website at catherineschafer.com using the link below. And don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so we can stay connected for more of these conversations. Thank you for walking this long way with me. I'll meet you here again next week. God bless.